Odyssey Files hosts, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Hey, this is Mike Couch from Lost Limbs Foundation. Make sure you check out Mike and Dave on the Odyssey Files because they really need the listeners.
Oh!
Kim, what are you doing?
Well, I'm telling Mike and Dave, it's time to get on the show.
Oh, well, the Odyssey Files starts now.
Good evening, paranormal community. It is 7 o'clock here, Central Time. I hope all of you turned your clocks back so you haven't been waiting for an hour and assuming that we're not going to be here tonight. I don't know who would do that, but
there'd be some loyal fans right there. That would be like free T-shirts for the people who were waiting for an hour for us to show up listening to Dead Air.
Exactly. So you are obviously listening to the Odyssey Files. I'm your host, Michael O'Neill. The other voice you heard is my wonderful co-host, Mr. David Soyring. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening, Mike. How are you on this wonderful Monday?
It is a wonderful Monday. And you want to know why it's a wonderful Monday?
Well, for me, it's because I actually shook whatever crap some inconsiderate person dumped on me on Thursday because I've been feeling a little under the weather, and I feel better today for the first time in 3 days. So for me, that's why it's a wonderful Monday.
I am really glad that you continued your sentence with that you were feeling under the weather, because somebody might have taken that as I'm finally getting over the crap somebody dumped on me a little differently.
Oh, gotcha. No, it was a little bit of kind of like a cold, little bit of a bug, cold bug, whatever I picked up somehow on Thursday, but better now.
Good. Excellent. And no, it is, that is a good day, but I just wanted to say, even though I'm not going to go into any details, but my partner Lauren and I have signed the paperwork for the venue for the 2022 Minnesota Para-Unity Convention today, this morning. And I'm very honored and happy to announce that a lot of the vendors have already bought their booths, and it's only been official for like 7 hours.
Very nice.
Right. So can't wait to fully announce that. Hopefully, if not next week on the show, the week after. It'll be announced publicly before that, but here on the show, hopefully by next week.
Cool.
That will happen.
That's very good news.
I agree. And you know what else is very good news? Our guest tonight. We have, for the first time, somebody that I've been wanting to talk to for quite a while. I know she's just been on our list for a long, long time. The great Chris Williams from Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters International will be joining us at the top of the hour. Really looking forward to talking with her. Greatly looking forward to. But we have stories. Some of them are good. Some of them are weird. Some of them are, let's just say, very personal. Which I cannot wait to get to. So
after 4 years of doing stories, I found a story tonight that is going to take the cake.
So happy. But that is going to be the finale for this time. So we're not going to start with it. We're going to save the best for last. And so we got 6 stories to get to beforehand. So let's just start right out and get these done, because I really want to get to number 7. So story number 1, Black Cats and Spirits. So this person writes in, my grandpa passed away in 2018. When I went to the hospital with my mom and aunt, a black cat crossed the street in front of us from the right to the left direction. I felt something in my chest. I knew something happened. Then then in the hospital, we found out my grandpa died 15 minutes before our arrival. I live in Hungary. In my country, we always light candles on the 31st of October in the cemetery at our late family members' graves, and we pray and remember for them. Today, I went to the cemetery where my grandpa is buried in my hometown. To reach the cemetery, you should go along. You go along a street where the lights do not work. I remember when I was a child, I was always afraid of that street at night. After I left the cemetery, it was already dark. When I reached the dark street, I felt afraid a little bit as I used to in my childhood. Suddenly, a black cat appeared. It was a weird feeling. As I walked along the street, the cat was walking with me. Then I reached the first street light and the cat ran away. I found it really interesting. Do you think there's any connection, or am I just crazy? And we start with a cat story.
We do.
like
We
it.
started with a cat story. We're going to start with a whimper and end with a bang.
All right. Well, so do I think you're crazy? No, I don't think you're crazy, but I also think that this is probably just a coincidence. I know that spirits can manifest in different ways, including animals. But I think in this case, and I can't believe I've already talked for like a minute and a half and I haven't made fun of a cat yet. I must be slowing down. Might be slowing down in my old age. I think I wanted to get the answer out first and then go after the cat. So I think it's just coincidence. I don't think that your grandpa's spirit or whatever is at all manipulating this cat or is possessing him or manifesting as this black cat. Honestly, I think the black cat was probably just following you because maybe you had some candy in your pocket, or and once you reached light, cats don't like light; they like darkness because they're evil little creatures from hell, and so he ran off. I also don't know. I don't know if it was supposed to be like some sort of big part of the story, but to talk about how it went from the right to the left. I
think there's something in folklore about how a black cat crosses your path. Not 100%,
Really?
but I think there is something about what direction the black cat comes from. Yeah. Especially in Europe, and if you're talking about small town Hungary or whatever, I'm sure that there's probably a lot of folklore there that we don't share, because I'm sure that they got a lot of stuff going on with a lot of their European stuff that's happening there. But I remember seeing something about the way a black cat crosses your path.
Okay. I mean, obviously I know about what happens if a black cat crosses your path. I just didn't know that there was any sort of left to right, right to left, front to back. I didn't know that there was any sort of directional aspect to it that caused it to change what it meant. So that's on me. I was just curious about that because it was a little weird that was added in there. I honestly think that cat was there because that's where all the death is. So at the hospital and at the cemetery, cats like to be around death. It energizes them. They like to steal souls. So it's definitely just think that the cat thing was a coincidence. That's just my opinion. All right, I'm done.
Okay. I'm going to chalk it up to just a coincidence as well myself. But that said, I will say this too. The black cat crossing the street in front of you, right? Like if it happened right at the hospital and then you walk in and your grandpa passed away, it could be, and I'm not saying it is, but if that was some sort of transportation of your spirit of your grandfather leaving the hospital, and then you went and visited his grave to pay respect at the cemetery, and then this black cat appeared and walked with you, and then booked off at the streetlight, it's possible, and I'm not saying that this is what happened, but it's possible that that could have been your, a carrier of spirit in animal form leaving the hospital as your grandpa's spirit, and then was at the cemetery for whatever reason, and you went and visited, and it saw you and was just walking with you, kind of giving you some, kind of like some, I don't want to say
Guidance?
compassion is not the right word. Just kind of some
Guidance?
relief, maybe. Yeah, guidance, relief. So letting you know that it's okay. Everybody passes. Don't be sad. Kind of thing. I don't think that happened, but I think that in the world that we live in, and as much as weird stuff as we see, I can't dismiss that has a possibility of being what could have happened. But I think it's more likely it was just that there's just a whole bunch of black cats that are strays that live in your neighborhood, and that you just happen to cross a couple of them. And a cemetery would be a place that like any cat would probably hang out because it's quiet. And if they get 2 or 3 of them together, they could dig up a fresh grave and have a feast. So
exactly, they could eat the flesh off the dead,
right?
Just like they try to do with the living. It's insane. So yeah,
it's happened before. There's been cases of that happening.
I definitely think that my explanation is probably a lot more logical here. So we'll just leave it at that.
All right. Number 2, new to this and looking for answers. So I don't know much about anything when it comes to paranormal stuff, but last night, me and my wife were watching the Ghost Hunter special, and he mentioned he had some ashes of Charles Manson in his museum, and then it hit me like a ton of bricks. November 8th, 2020, my wife's grandmother passed away. They were very close, and her grandmother raised her. So fast forward, Christmas 2020, my wife's aunt gifts my wife a kind of box that hangs on the wall and has a picture of grandmother, her funeral pamphlet, and in the middle, a necklace containing some of her ashes. Now, I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but shortly after we got this, my wife started having vivid dreams of her grandma, and our washer would randomly turn on out of nowhere. I can also just feel something when in our apartment, like the air is charged. So basically, just wanted to ask, is it possible to bring a spirit in with their ashes, and could we be haunted, or is this just a huge coincidence? You're not haunted. There'd be no reason for you to be haunted. But you certainly could bring in energy with ashes. And you've got this incredible connection between your wife and grandma that is a bond that was forged over time through a lot of emotions, love, pain, anger, I'm sure at times when there were arguments, that's just part of life. All of that energy and all of that things that happened in their lives together, and her being raised by her grandmother, definitely created a bond and created like probably what you could call a string or a connection. And so the fact that your ashes are in your grandma's ashes are in your house, certainly 100% could be a reason why things have kind of changed. You didn't say that your wife was having nightmares or anything like that. Vivid dreams of her grandma. That's not a bad thing, in my opinion. I love when I have like lucid dreams of my grandparents and my dad and friends that have passed away. So I wouldn't say that's a bad thing at all. Washer turning on out of nowhere, I don't know. Maybe that's grandma's way of like just messing with you. I don't know. But I don't think there's anything to worry about. I think that she's just there. And I don't think it's going to be long term, to be honest with you. I think she's just there as hey, this is me, and I just want to let you know that everything's good, and she'll be there for a little while, and then I think she'll probably move on.
Right. So, I just want to start with the whole, and you kind of touched upon it right away, is the whole haunted thing. I think that especially for people who don't know anything about the paranormal, they have the wrong connotation when it comes to that word. A lot of people think if they're haunted, that means that there's like some spirit out to get them, or there's
Yep.
the spirit trying to mess with them, that sort of thing. So, I mean,
Right.
do you have potential activity? Yeah. Are you haunted? 100% agree with you, Dave. I don't think they're haunted.
No.
Also 100% agree that, you can bring in ashes, you can bring in antiques, you can bring in anything that has energy connected to it, and you may actually get a fragment of that person's, I don't want to say soul so much, but like their personality, their energy. You may have like just a sliver of what grandma used to be, and the rest of her is actually moved on. But uh, I'm with you. He just had vivid dreams of grandma. Listen to him. If it's actually her trying to reach out, she's doing this because she wants to give the granddaughter a message.
Right.
Whether, as you said, it's I'm okay. I just want to make sure you're good. Here's something that I should have told you in while I was alive, but didn't. I don't want to move on until I've said this to you. Listen to the dreams, and if she's trying to tell her granddaughter something, I think once that message is conveyed, especially if that's besides the washer, I mean, that just may be, as you said, something that grandma would be like, hey, I'm still here,
Mhm.
like watch out for me.
Instead of making
And
like a
it's
knock on the wall or something somebody would dismiss, she's doing something like that you can't just dismiss, like turning on the washing machine. Because like for
yeah,
every washing machine, you have to pull that big knob out. I mean, unless it's some kind of different washing machine. But if you think about your washing machine, right, you turn the dial and then you pull it towards you, and it's like a solid click, and that turns the mechanism on.
I think
So, or
I
you
think the
push a
new
button.
washers are. I was just saying, I think the new washers are more push button.
You just push the buttons. Yeah.
So I mean, it would depend on obviously how modern their washer is, but
Right.
either way, I definitely don't think anybody is in any danger. I think once grandma gets her reason for being there out of the way, whether it's a message, whether it's just to make sure her granddaughter's all right, she's going to move on her own, and you're not going to have any more problems. So definitely, when it comes to this type of activity, you can't get much better than grandma.
No, agreed, 100%. It's a feel good story, not a scary story, and we don't see many feel good stories. So,
Right.
quick
Well,
question for you before we move on. What do
sure.
you think? like if ashes get kind of divided up, right? And I've seen this happen before. Like somebody will wear a little necklace, like with a little jeweled thing, or like a little like a little vessel, right? And it'll have like a little smidgen of somebody's, like their dad's ashes or whatever. And then like there might be part of grandma's ashes, or whatever, like on this memorial to her, because this is what I'm envisioning, is like this photo of grandma, her pamphlet for her funeral, and then like some of her ashes as like a wall plaque, like a memorial, kind of like respect, remembrance type of thing. And let's say that 4 or 5 other people got her ashes, and then like the large majority of her ashes were left in the urn and put in a mausoleum or someplace like that's specially designed for above ground, putting your urn in the place where you can go visit it. So that said, what do you think? Because this is what I think. I don't think that the ashes break up the energy. Like, I don't think like, okay, in my example, I don't think there's like 80% of grandma in the vessel, in the urn, and then there's 5% here and 8% there and 6% there and 4% here. Here's what I think. I think that if you have those ashes spread throughout the area, I think that that's almost like a connection point for the energy of grandma to easily hop, like taking the subway to each of those locations to visit where her ashes are. What do you think of that?
I think that's probably pretty plausible. I mean, that's when you were first proposing the question. I mean, that was what came to mind. I also, the only thing that I would not so much add, but kind of just throw into that mix is, I wonder if it has to be not so much ashes, but let's say like part of the actual body, like part of the bone, something. So because I mean, supposedly, if you want to do, um, if you want to go the whole supernatural route, if you're ashes, if you're cremated, if you're ashes, then you shouldn't be able to come back at all. But so I mean, I think if it's just ashes and that's it, I don't know if it has enough connection to the energy to be a connection point or to be able to be used as some sort of jump point. But I'm thinking that if you still had like a solid piece of bone or a tooth or something that survived the blazing inferno that they do when they
Right. Yep.
when they cremate you, I think that is possible, to be used as some sort of beacon, of the soul of energy, whatever you want to do it. But yeah, I don't know if I can get behind ashes themselves. I think it's got to be a part of the body that maintained its cohesion.
Gotcha. I know when
Good
my dad
question.
passed. Yeah, I know when my dad passed, he was cremated, and I know that until we put him in his final resting spot, which took about not quite a year. That we had his ashes in an urn and didn't take it to its final resting spot that we wanted to take him to. There was a ton of activity. There was a lot of activity. That was, and I'm pretty sure it was my dad. So, and now,
Yeah,
and
kind of
then
like,
after we
hello,
took,
family. Let's move on here.
yeah, well, because of schedules and the time of year and everything else, it wasn't feasible for us to be able to take him to his final resting spot. So, but once I took him to his final resting spot and laid his ashes out, everything just felt different. Everything felt amazing. And I think he moved on, because I have not. Well, I won't say I personally, I've smelled, like I've said before on the show, I smelled his cologne in my house a couple times when the girls were young. The girls would kind of feel his presence, but I really never felt his presence there. But I would smell, like I told you, I smelled his cologne. And the girls, all three of them, had interactions with him. So he was there, but I think he and I had a great relationship. So I think he had already, he's like, I don't have anything to say to you. We had great life together. So, all right.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Do you want to do the number 3, or do you want to just jump around, or what do you want to do?
No. We got plenty of time.
We got time.
All right.
Yeah, let's do the number 3 because it's an interesting one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, speaking of like darkness and stuff like that, and the opposite of a good haunting or a good activity. Here we have spirit orb made infinity sign. So I know you're at the edge of your seats right now. This is going to be good. So I'm a 31-year-old male, and I can't comprehend what I just saw. That is not surprising whatsoever. I was headed out to run some errands when I realized that I didn't have my charger to my phone. So I walked into my living room to grab the charger, and that's when I saw it. The 30-point buck. Just kidding. So a glowing white orb, bigger than a basketball, with about 10 to 20 smaller orbs surrounding it. It swiftly moved into an infinity sign, a sideways 8. Yes, we know what an infinity sign means. I was stunned and walked out as fast as I could, scared to hell. I realized that I just dropped my car keys and couldn't just stay there. So when I went back into my apartment to grab my keys, I grabbed them, and as I'm walking out the door to my truck, I looked back one last time to see it in my bedroom, and it flies up into my upstairs neighbor's apartment. I do have a few ideas of what it could be. I'd gone to a friend's house a few days before, and they busted out a Ouija board, but I didn't play. Also, a woman committed suicide in the apartment building behind me a week prior to that happening. I'm just curious if anyone else has seen something like this. Yeah, I guess I don't think the whole infinity thing has happened, but I mean,
I've
like
I've
multiple
never seen
forms.
an infinity. I've never seen something make it the infinity sign.
Well, I have, but it came from a sparkler, so not paranormal.
Okay, then I
Um,
have too. When I was about 8 to 16 years old, when we would run around and do this as sparklers.
well, people mature in different rates, and maybe this
Right.
31-year-old is still doing sparklers. I don't
Maybe.
know. I I honestly don't know what it is. My initial reaction to this was you were seeing something alien more so than supernatural, but the whole like shot up through the floor kind of changed my mind a little bit. um I guess I wouldn't put it past alien technology to be able to phase through solid thing. I mean, people talk all the time about aliens like walking through their walls. So um
They just show up.
that's my yeah,
You know.
they're just
It's
there.
like a ghost. They just right. They just. I don't think our materialistic. I don't think our materials are any type of barrier to an alien presence. I think they can just transport right through them without a problem, like a spirit could. They're not bound by our dimensional gravitational type of things.
Right. I don't think that this had anything to do with your Ouija board thing, although I guess I'll give you a little bit of respect in, that you didn't play with the Ouija board, but yeah.
That goes back to the question again, though, of even if you're not participating, if you're in the room and somebody actually conjures something up, are you in danger?
I think you might be in danger right then, but I mean, I would think that it'd be more easier. It would be far easier for a, any sort of entity to latch on to the people that actually invited him in than the person who sat in the corner and never said a word.
Right.
So yeah, I just don't get, especially if that was a one-time deal. I definitely don't get that had anything to do with the Ouija board. The suicide is, I guess, a little interesting. But again, if you've never had a paranormal experience in your entire life until that little thing, I don't think that had anything to do with that either, unless her spirit in some way was going from apartment to apartment to apartment looking for somebody who wasn't going to freak out and run screaming out the door, which
Right.
honestly could be the case.
Or if she was confused, since it was the apartment building right behind his, maybe she was looking for her apartment and was a little lost. That could be too. I mean, I don't know. I got to imagine committing suicide is a pretty traumatic experience. One I will never know. And unless we get somebody who has a near death experience from trying to take their own life and lives through it and can actually talk to us about it, which would be when we do the near death experience show somewhere next year. I want to do that like 2 hours on that show and actually get eyewitnesses. And I think that'd be a great show. People actually tell us their stories of what happened. And if we find somebody who tried to take their own life and lived through it, I mean, one of my fraternity brothers tried to kill himself, cut his wrists the long way, but he didn't officially die. They got to him. His roommates got to him in time. It was close, but I don't think he actually passed away and then was brought back. So we'd have to find somebody who actually either OD'd maybe, and they, pumped their stomach or whatever. And that they actually were coded for a little bit. I don't know. We'll have to do some digging to find somebody.
Yeah. I honestly, just to kind of finish up my little thing.
Yeah.
I don't think the infinity symbol really is at all that pertinent to the story. Yeah, it's cool. I just don't think that it was like trying to give you a message or anything like that by flashing the sign at you. Now, if it would have been like a middle finger, I would have been all over this case. I've been I want to go to this apartment now because my people are there. But anyway, that's all I got for the infinity sign orb.
All right. I agree with Mike. I really don't have much to add. I'm just going to say if this really happened, if this is a real experience, I that is an amazing orb the size of a basketball with all these other orbs surrounding it. I mean, that would be amazing to see. I've never seen one that big. I mean, the actual biggest orb that I actually manifested in my presence, maybe got as big as a grapefruit. And I've seen multiple orbs, like actual orbs, like one. I mean, you were at one of the cases with me when I was sitting in her bedroom, and I heard the footsteps in the hallway, and then all of a sudden I look in the hallway and I see this white ball just about the size of a golf ball, just cruising right past the door, just minding its own business. And I watched it walk down the hallway and then just dissipate. So, I've seen manifestation of energy like that, but the size of a basketball, I don't know. I don't know if size has anything to do with the amount of energy being put into it, but since we're human beings and since that's kind of what our knowledge base is, the more energy you pump into something, I think it would get bigger. So it makes sense that if it's the size of a golf ball or the size of a basketball, that the one that's a basketball would contain substantially more energy or a larger energy signature of some type than the one that's the size of a golf ball, if that makes sense. But I've never heard of something that big and then have 10 or 20 little ones around it. I agree with you. I think it sounds more alien to me. It doesn't sound like that's like a ghost spirit to me.
Right. So I want to just put out a disclaimer for what I'm about to say, that I do not I do not agree with the language in which I'm about to use. It just came to mind, and it contextually goes with what we were talking about here. But I remember a joke from Married with Children that Al Bundy would say. And those of you who don't know what Married with Children is, shame on you. It's an amazing show.
Shame on you. Yeah.
But Al Bundy works in a shoe store, hates his life, blah, blah, blah. But he comes home and he goes, a fat woman came into the shoe store today and she was so large, she had 3 smaller women orbiting around her. And I think that's funny, but okay.
It
so
is
anyway,
funny.
but I'm wondering if this basketball of an orb and the smaller orbs going around it was in some way as what we would call a collector. Like those were each individual people, but the larger basketball was drawing them in, kind of a
soul collector kind of.
Well, yeah, the collector. And that he or she or whatever this entity was with the basketball, had these other smaller entities with it, to keep it that strong, that sort of thing. Again, I don't think the infinity symbol meant anything. Maybe you just wanted to impress the guy. I don't know, but
that's what it was. We're gonna let's mess with this guy instead of doing something scary. Let's just do the infinity symbol and then bolt to the ceiling, bolt to the apartment upstairs.
Yeah, he should have done like a happy face or something like that. Like that would really have impressed me.
If he had his phone, he should have got a picture of it because that would have been a phenomenal photo. So
I agree.
That's one of those moments though where like you're watching it and you're kind of transfixed watching it, and then it's only there for a couple seconds and then it goes away, and then you're like, that was amazing. And you start talking about it, thinking about it, your brain processes it, and then you go, damn it, I should have pulled my phone out, because that would be me. Like, I don't think to grab my phone every time I see something odd.
Well, right. And I know our good friend Doug talks about, and I've read stories of Bigfoot encounters of people who've stared at him for like 5 minutes, but never go to reach for their damn phone, the entire time. And I think one story I read said that he was like at their window for like 19 minutes, but nobody got a photo and nobody got video, and because nobody bothered to go for their phone. And I don't know, it's weird. but apparently it happens.
It happens. I had a group of friends a couple of years ago that had a UFO encounter, and all three of them had, the latest, greatest iPhones or smartphones or whatever. None of them thought to pull their phones out. It lasted 2 or 3 minutes. They all watched this amazing UFO dancing around in the sky and change shape and like move and turn, all this shit they're telling me. And I'm like, where's the video? Yeah, we didn't think to. It didn't think to do it, and I believe them. I mean, there's no reason for them to tell me they had an encounter if they didn't. So, but it's one of those kind of things. You're transfixed on it, and all of a sudden you don't pull it out. So, all right. So moving on to number 4, so we can get here to finish up tonight. It's number 4. Am I being followed? So it starts. So I've had paranormal stuff happen to me a lot since I was like 8. I've always felt a scary presence in the corner of my room since I was 8 years old. Weird things happened, like things moving and disappearing, books flying off shelves, and once all the frames I had on the wall fell at the same time. And also scratching under my bed. This happened between the ages of 8 and 15. Well, I moved to a boarding school from 15 to 17, and even more things happened as it got stronger, to the point I had sleep paralysis. It was talking to me in my dreams, mimicking my friends' voices, and I could start seeing it while I was awake. My friends could see and hear it too once in a while, just not as much. We tried getting rid of it, but it got angry. After some heavy cleansing from an experienced person, I thought it left. Bright sliver of light came into my room and it left. Whole different story, made me believe in angels. That's in kind of parentheses. So I go to college, ages 18 to 21, and it followed me, but it wasn't as strong until I turned 20. And then my roommate started feeling it too, and we all saw it once at separate times. I thought it was just a college suite with all the negative energy, but then we moved recently and I'm feeling it again, but this time it's weird. Like previously, all those experiences wouldn't have been weird, I guess. Now it's weird. I thought I was paranoid when this happened, but I was in my bed and I felt a strong presence in the living room area. But I could feel it move around from the living room to the kitchen, and it entered my room at one point. I was frozen in fear. I felt an overwhelming amount of fear. Good use of the word fear there. Anyways, this Halloween, I was talking to my roommate and boyfriend, and they started talking about how they felt a weird presence in the same areas I felt. Sorry, this is a whole rambling thing, but I don't know what to do. I've already cleansed the place. I've come to terms that I've had something attached to me, but I thought I got rid of it, and the college thing was just college related. Kind of lost me there. But now I'm wondering if I'm just doomed to having something attached to me. Has anyone experienced a weird presence following them? Note, also, it sits in the back seat of my car, and sometimes I see it in my rearview mirror, but that's a whole different thing.
We'll talk about that story later.
We'll talk about that when we talk about the angels that showed up that took it away. Okay, so I'm going to point out the obvious here. Since you were 8 years old, somehow you got an attachment. And this attachment has been attached to you your whole entire life. And whatever they did to try and cleanse it, this experienced person that did a cleansing might have cleansed the room. And it sounds like they did, because they brought light into the room, which caused this dark energy to leave. So I would say that the person did their job as far as cleansing a space, but they did not cut the cords for your attachment. So I believe that once you have an attachment, you can cleanse all the hell you want to. You have to cut that cord. You have to actually remove that presence from you. If you take a look at this whole story, it started at 8. All through this story, it never left. It wasn't as strong at times, but then, all of a sudden it shows back up with a huge presence in college. It showed up with force when she was at the boarding school, mimicking her friends' voices. Other people are seeing it. Negative energy all throughout the college suite. Thinking she was paranoid. but then she says I was frozen in fear. So anyway, somehow you got an attachment there, honey, and you need to go see somebody who can remove an attachment by cutting cords, like our friend Cena does. I would say that this is serious. I would say that this is a strong entity. I would say that if this thing has the ability to come and sit in the back seat of your car and travel with you, and you look in the rearview mirror and see it, if other people that are not afflicted by it see it and hear it, and it's doing the exact same thing that you're saying it's doing, you've got a serious attachment. And I would do everything you can as quick as you can to get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on if it is an attachment, definitely needs to cut the cord, not just some smudging, you know. But I mean, that's why we say we need to do an investigation. We have to realize what we're dealing with so we can choose the proper, the proper remedy. And
right.
sometimes a cleansing is not the proper remedy.
Right.
But just to fully look at this, I'm wondering, just to throw out all kinds of theories here.
Yep.
If we're talking about not an attachment, but just different entities. 8 is really young to get an attachment, especially for somebody who is obviously not into like Ouija boards and stuff to get an attachment. And, if you look at the stories, they seem to be different. Like when she was in her 8 to 15, she had books flying off shelves, frames falling off the wall. She had all of the things moving and disappearing. She had like a lot of physical stuff.
Yeah.
And then she moved to college, and it was
boarding school
or boarding, whatever.
Well, I'm just saying, if you're going transitionally age-wise, when she went to boarding school, she said it had things happened and it got stronger.
But different. I mean, if you look at this point, where I had sleep paralysis, talking to me in my dreams, mimicking my friends' voices, and I could start to see when she was awake, but no moving objects, no things flying off the shelves. I mean, it's all different stuff.
But that could be transitional from the spirit. So the attachment could be transitioning to doing something different, because it's not, maybe the things it was doing isn't causing the effect that it's trying to cause.
Yeah, but I wouldn't see, I mean, yeah, it could be transitional, but it's not an upscale. Like, it's not doing more. Like, I would think the stuff flying off the shelves and moving things and disappearing would freak people out a lot more than hearing your friend's voice call your name, or that you can see it in your dreams. Like, I would think that was actually a step backwards. And I'm not saying that this all is different entities. I just think that it's weird that every transition that she went to, it was something different.
Right.
Like there was no beyond just the bad feelings. There's no similarities.
Right.
And
so you're saying that since the books were flying off the shelves at home, if it was the same entity, that when she got to college, that she would have similar experiences of books falling off a table or magazines getting tossed around a room, or something that was similar to what was happening between the ages of 8 and 15 while she was at home.
Well, I mean, come on. I mean, even musical artists, love to play the hits every once in a while. I think that if it's the same entity, it would still do certain things, especially that it would have terrified her. Like, there's never been a scratching under the bed again. There's never been things flying off the shelves again. And I'm wondering if maybe she has some sort of innate abilities that is actually attracting stuff to her when she goes to a different location. And I'm not saying that I'm absolutely right. I'm just to put out all the theories.
Right.
The only thing that I find weird about this is that in none of these cases is anything the same as it was before. That would just
Right.
lead me to believe that we're dealing with something different every time. So, I mean, there are people out there
She's
that
a
are so open. Well, I would say
Go ahead.
that they are
Go
so
ahead.
open that they just invite attachments, whether they want to or not. It's just easy to attach to their energy.
Well, I was going to say she must be like a nuclear core then, if going on your theory, because every place she goes, different locations, whatever, every place she goes, she's having some major activity. I mean, that's all that everything that's happening to her would be considered to be major activity. That's not minor activity in any of those locations. So if she must have like this, she must be like the 1 in 10 million that has some sort of energy within her that is just like I said, like a nuclear cell that is just drawing incredible amounts of huge activity to her. And
Well,
if that's the case, then we need to meet her, because that would be one hell of a person to like meet and and hang out with, and I don't want to say study in the sense of like lab rat study, but it would be interesting to hang out with them and experience the things that she's experiencing, to be there to witness the things that are going on and see if she is terrified, or to see if she's just to the point now, since it's been happening for 15, 16 years, whatever, 18 years, if she's just to the point where, like I was, yeah, okay, there's another book thrown off the shelf, okay, there's, the glass just broke in the kitchen, the cabinet door open, the refrigerator door's open again, it's just like, okay, you just get up and you just address it, you just take care of it at that point, because it's happened so many times, it's not a big deal anymore. So I wonder if that is how she is. I mean, if that's what's happening. I get what you're saying. I still think it's an attachment, and that whatever it is following her and is just adapting itself to her age or to what it feels would be influencing her. Like what could I do now that she's 18 versus when she was 8? What can I do now that she's 22? What can I do now that she's in this group of people who are all in their early 20s that aren't children anymore, so they're not as afraid as they would have been had I got to them all when they were 7, 8 years old.
Yeah,
I don't know that it's negative. I guess that's the only thing I don't know, because I'm not seeing any type of attacks. Right. And I honestly, I don't think that something negative is going to follow you around for 15 years and not kick your ass once or twice.
Exactly. And it even says here, like in the college suite, all she was reporting is a presence. Like it almost seems like everywhere she goes, it gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And now it's just, it's just something people feel. And
well, she did say negative energy, and then she said I was frozen in fear, and I felt an overwhelming amount of fear, which I complimented her on her use of the word fear.
Right, especially twice in the same sentence. So
right.
Okay, all right. Well, that's all I got, because I want to move on.
Yeah, exactly. I spoke my piece on it, so get some help either way, because something's going on with you in your life.
All right, so here's our next one, number 5. Help with what may be a haunted house. My boyfriend and I own a home in a neighborhood near Detroit, Michigan. You're definitely in a haunted house. The house was built in 1915, and we have lived here for a little over 3 years. For the most part, it's been pretty chill. Nothing too weird. However, in the last year, things have been getting a little creepy. It started small, like seeing a figure out of the corner of your eye or in a mirror, and when you look back, it's gone. Then the TV would turn on and off, or the lights would switch on and off. It's recently escalated, like our bedroom light turning on while we're sleeping. We both wake up and the light turns back off before either of us get up to the switch. My boyfriend has woken up in the night and seen a figure standing in the dark that quickly disappears. Last Thursday, I woke up screaming, and not woke up and started screaming, but woke up because of the noise I was making. And standing over me was a figure. I could describe his face in detail, with his hands up like okay, chill out. that then backed up and disappeared into the dark. Yesterday, we were sitting on the front porch, and a man we've seen go into the house across the street and down a few doors approached us. He told us his mom lives in the house across the street, and he lived there as a kid in the 70s. He told us that at that time the house was abandoned and in bad shape, and he would see a light on in the house at night when there was no electricity in the house. He was insistent the house was haunted. What do? I don't necessarily think a ghost is scary as long as it's not doing scary stuff. And for the most part, it's just unsettling. However, it does seem to be escalating. Is there a way to help everyone to chill out so we can go back to cohabitating comfortably? Do I need to talk to someone about getting them out of here? Thank you for any invite you may have. So I think just really quickly, again, I think there's activity. I don't think you're being haunted. I just think you have activity. I also think that, especially if it's in one of those like, whoa, okay, I see you're awake. Sorry to startle you. Sorry for me for spying, for standing over you in a creepy manner. I honestly just think that you should probably either get a paranormal team, a reputable paranormal team out there to just kind of communicate with the spirit, not to move them on or not to, give them shit or anything like that, but just to plead your case that, hey, maybe you should not be around these people, like when their bedroom, stop with the lights, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
If you don't want to do that, I would talk to it yourself and be like, hey, here are the rules. I understand you're here. I don't think you need to leave. You're not hurting anybody. You're just kind of creeping us out. Here's our new rules for you to stay here. If that's what you want to do, leave us alone. Do not come into our room when we're in our room. Do not come anywhere around us when we are here.
Stop turning the light switch on when we're sleeping.
Well, right. But I mean, that kind of just goes with the whole leave me alone.
Right.
Type of thing. But yeah, as you like to say, Dave, set your boundaries.
Right. I can tell you for a fact it works. So I agree with Mike. I don't, they're not being haunted at all. There's an entity in the house. I totally think it's just there and it's just trying to make contact with you. And it's kind of the feeling I get from the way this is written is it's just trying to make contact with you to say, hey, don't forget about me. This was my house in it was built in 1915. So I built this house in 1915, my dad did. And then when he passed away, I lived here with my wife and my family for 40 years, and so it's nice that it's nice that this house was abandoned and neglected and, basically forgotten about. And maybe they're just coming back to say, you know what, thank you very much for bringing this house back to life because it really meant something to us when we were alive. That's what I think is happening here, especially with the fact that the place was abandoned and just like a crack house. And now it's got love in it and energy in it and positivity in it. And the spirit is just trying to come back and say, thank you, really, is what I think is happening. And it's just not matching up. You know what I mean? It's doing one of these. Instead of doing this, it's doing one of these because it's hard to get the perfect connection. So I think everything is fine. I wouldn't be freaked out and I would set your boundaries and then everything else that Mike said. And I'm going to skip number 6 and save it for next week. And Mike, go ahead and take the last one.
All righty. Witnessed event. Everybody, if just hold on to your horses here. So, strap in because shit's about to get real. So, all right. I live in a building that was built in 1809. I was having a conversation with my boyfriend in the living room. Well, heated and emotional exchange about our future. He said he's thought about breaking up, but doesn't want to. Just as he said that, we heard this weird alien gasping for breath noise coming from my bedroom. He started to get nervous. I was like, it's probably just my radiator. I got up and walked towards my bedroom. As I approached It definitely didn't sound like my radiator. My boyfriend stood in the doorway, and I walked into my bedroom, turned on the light. My vibrator, which was sitting on my bedside table, had turned on to the highest setting. The strong vibrations were pushing the device to move in perfect circles, hence the weird noise, around my water bottle. My boyfriend was so spooked. I thought it was so cool. This is not the first encounter I've had in this place, but this is the first one where I had someone around to witness it. Okay, there is a lot to unpack here, people. Okay. First, we're going to take the relationship, okay? Because I am the relationship doctor here. If the boyfriend says he's thought about breaking up but doesn't want to, you need to break up with him, okay? He's just waiting for something. He has no other options. Like, that's pretty much what that means. He just has no other options for him to go. As soon as he does, he's out the door. You might as well just get rid of him now. He's worthless. He's a moron. Okay, with that said, I think that whatever spirit is in your house, if there is a spirit in your house, was probably trying to tell you the exact same thing, and you need to start getting used to using your vibrator again. Okay? That's what I think it was trying to tell you. Or maybe it was a deceased loved one. I don't know. I don't know about your life. But I definitely think that maybe, just spitballing here, you probably shouldn't leave your vibrator sitting on your bedstand. Maybe in a drawer or something like that, under a pillow. I don't know. I guess you're very, very proud of this, especially one that has multiple speeds. I don't know a lot about vibrators, okay? But this one has multiple speeds to it. Obviously gets used. Just gonna point that out there. So even if you have a boyfriend and you still prefer, little Frankie, maybe you should just find a new boyfriend. That's all I got.
That is a perfect way to end stories tonight. I don't have anything.
You're welcome. You're welcome, everybody. All right. Well, we're going to go to commercial then, now that we have gotten that out of the way. Ladies, just don't put up with our bullshit, okay? If we say stupid shit like that, just get rid of us, okay? All right. Anyway, we're going to go to break. And when we come back, we will have the great Chris Williams with us. Very much looking forward to that. So we will see you on the other side. You are listening to the Odyssey Files here on the Iron Range Radio Network and the Cosm Network.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com, then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hey, this is Dustin Perry from Ghost Hunters, and you're listening to Dave and Mike on the Odyssey Files. It's not the best show you're ever going to listen to, but it's also probably not the worst.
And we are back. So welcome back to the Odyssey Files. I am your host, as always, Michael O'Neill, and my co-host, as always, Mr. David Soyring. So we want to bring in our guest immediately because we wanted to have all the time possible. So ladies and gentlemen, from Ghost Hunters International, the great Chris Williams.
Hey guys.
Yes.
How's it going? Hi.
Good. Hi.
I'm glad that worked.
Oh my goodness. You gotta love tech. Sometimes it just doesn't agree with you at all.
No, it does not.
Yeah,
thank you.
We know.
But thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. I know that Dave and I have been really looking forward to talking with you for a very long time.
Thank you.
So, since we have you, I guess let's start out because one of the things that I do in my office is every Friday, especially, we take like an hour or so out of the day, out of the afternoon, just kind of wind down after the week. And we've been watching the first couple seasons of Ghost Hunters. Okay. And we've gotten to the point, obviously, where you have joined
the crew. I was a baby.
we were all back. We were all back then.
Yes.
But I guess the first question that I want to ask is, what was your experience with the paranormal before actually coming on the show, or was that as legit as it looked as you were just starting out?
I was honestly just starting out. My family had stories that got kicked around, experiences we all had. My mom grew up in a house that was supposedly haunted. I say supposedly because up until I think July, my grandmother still lived there, and I had never had anything happen to me in that house. But I know my dad did, and my mom did, and my aunts and uncles had stories. So yeah, I didn't know that there were people out there intentionally looking for this stuff. It wasn't until I met Jay and Grant that I learned there were weirdos out there doing what we do. And they hadn't had the show yet. So they kept trying to get me to jump in because they knew I had a history and a background in history. I was more of a history lover and genealogy obsessed nut. And they felt that would fit in well with what they were doing as far as trying to figure out what went on in locations and who lived there, died there, events that took place there, that sort of thing. So it was kind of just a natural fit. But yeah, I didn't have any experience with investigation. So
looking back to when you actually got out in the field, what were your expectations?
I really didn't know what to expect. It was weird. So Jay and Grant had asked me several times to join, and several times I said no. I didn't want to do it. I'm like, no, I don't want to be a ghost girl. No, I don't want to do this. No, 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 no. It was one thing to say okay and hang out on investigation behind the scenes, but I just didn't want anything to do with the show early on. And then I had a year, 2006. We had 5 people pass away in a year. From various different things, and they're all family members were they all family? Yeah, all family except for one. And I didn't grow up in a church. I didn't have any sort of faith or background in the church. So when they had finally asked again after all that, it was kind of like, okay, now I'll do it. It was just like I needed to know there was more to everything than just ending with death. The whole thing was it was really odd. I don't know. It's been a crazy ride. I'll say that much. But
So you were just looking. I was just going to follow up quick. So you were kind of looking for a possible explanation as to whether life goes forward after 2006 and the passings of like family members or loved ones.
I mean, I wanted to know that there's more to death than just ending. But at the same time, I'm very much a fact-based person. You know, with genealogy, you have records to go off of. So when I got in, I was very much like, you know, there are other people like me out there that are trying to figure this out, that aren't into the church, and maybe they are. But I wanted to take it very seriously, and I wanted to take it very honestly, because I was somebody, I don't do well with being lied to. So I didn't want to put myself in a position where I was lying to other people who are looking for the same sort of answers that I was. That's something I really took to heart. But yeah, it was just kind of the right time. It was just a weird spot in my life. Like I said, I'd said no a million times before that. It was just stars aligned, and I ended up with the boys. So, yeah.
So one of the questions that I've asked my investigators many times, and that is the expectations that you had going into it, as opposed to what you actually got when you got into the field. How did that differ from you? Because yours is going to be a little different, because not only did you have the actual paranormal investigation, but you had a TV show following you around.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I really didn't.
How did that differ?
I mean, I really didn't know what to expect. You know, the camera crew at first kind of throws you off. It's not a large crew, but it's still, most people aren't used to having a camera in their faces at work. So that was kind of something you had to get used to. After a while, though, it became pretty natural because we worked with the same people all the time. So we became just as close to the crew as we were to our own investigators and our teammates. And they, in a way, became investigators themselves after a while. They'd hear certain claims. I remember there'd be times Amy and I would be investigating, and we'd hear one of the audio guys go, "You guys need the temperature gauge. They said cold spots." And we're like, "Oh, crap." So we run back out to the van to grab whatever it was we need, because they were just used to hearing all the same stuff day in, day out. They were used to our investigation style. So after a while, you forgot that the crew was even there, or you just felt like a camaraderie even with them, because we were all kind of on the same team, and they were really cool and really respectful of what we did, even if they didn't believe in it themselves. They really liked our approach, and they respected the approach. So the crew, like I said, first few investigations, it took a little while to get used to. That after a while, you forget that they're there, and you investigate in the dark. So outside of their IR, you don't really see them. So that kind of made it easy too. Investigation wise, I didn't know what to expect because I'd never been on one before. And I don't know, I would say I was open-minded because, like I said, I had experiences in the past. I really didn't know what to expect going in. And I didn't know what to expect. It was just a clean slate, new weird thing I was jumping into, and I was just kind of ready for it. But yeah.
What was your aha moment? Like, what was the moment that, yeah, well, like your first, like my first aha moment, like I grew up in a paranormal setting. So I'm one of those kids that about age 3 or 4, the house was on fire. Everything was going nuts. I was the target of this thing. And that's how I grew up all the way till I moved out. So like growing up in it is why I'm in it now, is because I try to work with families with kids that are having issues so that they can feel better about themselves and not be scared to death of their own house.
Yeah.
So like, what was your moment? Like one of my first one that I could really think of, like that I was just like, holy crap, this really is real, was a full body apparition showing up in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Like what was your moment where you were like, oh, I guess everything that I heard stories might be true, like maybe they weren't telling me the truth type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I had some stuff growing up happen. So I wasn't a complete non-believer, but I still consider myself skeptic first. But as far as with the show, my first big thing that happened actually wasn't on camera. It was at the hotel room. Actually, no, there was one before that too. Crap.
Well, tell us both.
Okay, so the first one, we were at Waverly Hills for live show Halloween. I was working with Dustin. It was my second time working with him. I love him, by the way. We had been working in the body shoot, and we kept hearing footsteps and seeing sounds from the bottom of the tunnel. So we hike all the way down there. Then we'd hear it all coming from the top. So we go run into the top. And if you guys have been in there before, it's just slanted stairs on one side, sloped on the other, and it's exhausting going up and down these damn things as much as we were. So I had said to Dustin at one point, I'm like, we should just set up in the middle, and then we have half the distance to go, because we couldn't figure out what was going on. So we're standing there, and Dustin was swinging his flashlight. So it was one of those deals where there's light in front of you and then there's not.
Right.
And I went to put my hair up, and at the same time, we both saw this like dull ball of light. It was probably about the size of a soccer ball, maybe a little smaller, and it was rolling down the tunnel towards us. Immediately, we both thought animal, because what else would be charging down a tunnel? Right. So we jokingly call it now the ghost skunk, but we both immediately thought skunk or something. But then it was about 2 feet in front of us. We both saw it at the same time. We both yelled at the same time. And then about 2 feet before it got to us, it just like flattened and it was gone. So that was weird. And then at the end of the night, yeah, it was strange. At the end of the night, we ended up on the very top floor where they have that extra walled-in area, but then they have the open roof for the rest of it. And we're in the walled-in space. Camera crew was gone. Live show was done. It was just Dustin and I up there collecting our stuff. And I remember there was just shit all over the floor. Like anywhere you stepped, you heard crunching. Just crunching sounds. So we were both standing still. I was winding up some of the cords, and I started hearing the crunching like somebody was walking around us. And I started in August. This was in October, so I wasn't there very long. And I remember saying to Dustin, I'm like, Dustin! He's like, I know, I hear it. He's like, just calmly grab everything so we don't have to come back up here again. I'm like, okay. So we both had our arms full of stuff, like overflowing, because we didn't want to have to go back up. And we're going down the stairwell. We came out on the first or second floor. I can't remember where we were set up. But we passed the first room on our left, and we heard footsteps in that room. And I'm just like, what the heck? So we start walking a little faster. And then we passed the second room on the left. Same deal, footsteps in the room. We started walking a little faster. And then it went from running, stomping, heavy footsteps right up, like running up behind us. And I'm thinking, okay, Jay or Grant are screwing with us. Like, show's done. So they're probably just trying to scare me because I'm new. And I remember looking at Dustin and his eyes were like this. So I'm like, okay, this isn't cool. So I turned around. There was nobody. There was nobody on the floor. There was no one. So that was probably like my first big on the job experience. But yeah, no cameras there to catch it. And then the other one was in a hotel when we were shooting with St. Augustine. And that one I was definitely not ready for. We did the return of, and we were in this hotel all week. Hotel wasn't supposed to be haunted. And I remember the last night I was sitting up in bed. The only two light sources in the room were the TV right in front of me and my computer that was just to the left on the desk. And I had just turned the TV off. I sat there for a second and I saw a shadow figure for the first time. It walked right to left in front of my computer. I remember it blocking out the light from my computer. I was sitting there like, what the hell? So I was like internally panicking, like, this does not make any sense. So I chose to ignore it. And I remember lying down, and do you know how, like, if you have your alarm, the old alarm clocks, you have them on, but the sound's all the way down, you get that high-pitched hum?
Mm-hmm.
I was getting that. And I never used the alarm clocks in the room. I had always used my phone. I hadn't heard that all week. So I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. So I got up and I shut it off. And as soon as my head hit the pillow, my lamp turned on. And I was just sitting there like, okay. But I was also very stubborn because at the time I was the only female cast and crew. And the last thing I wanted to do was call the boys up and be like, I'm afraid of my room. So I just kind of sucked it up. I didn't even tell them about that until like years later too. It was weird. But yeah.
Do you think that was just somebody from the lighthouse that was just checking in on you? Or do you think it was something in the hotel? Don't know.
I have no idea. It was so random. It was so unexpected. The shadow figure thing is probably one of the cooler things I've experienced. And I've only had that happen I think only a couple of times. But yeah, it's just so weird. You know, I remember when I first started, the guys would say, oh, the shadows are darker than the dark. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But once you see it,
till you see one. Yeah, as I say, till you see it, and you're like, what the hell? Why is that darker than the rest of the room?
Yeah. And you can clearly see where it starts and stops. And I was saying to somebody, it looks like one of those full body shooting targets, like the silhouette.
Yeah.
Just walking through your room. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to think that too. Like, how could it be darker than the dark? I used to think that too until I saw my first shadow figure, and I'm like, holy shit. Now that is that. I thought it was dark in here, but that is like true darkness. You know, like it was almost like it was in daylight, like a person walking in daylight the first one I saw. It was like black versus light gray, but the room wasn't light gray, it was black, you know?
Yeah.
So it was, it's amazing when you see it.
It is. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. And it was funny because the second one that I saw, we're at Iron Island, and we had just had a new camera guy start, first night. And he was shadowing the other camera guy to kind of see how it all worked. And I remember we were doing a little mini interview with Kristen Garland, and way down behind her was the entranceway to this building. Same thing. Shadow figure came out of one corner, and as it passed the front door, we heard the door unlock, and then it disappeared in the next. But the best part of it was the camera guy. He's like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "Did you see that?" He goes, "It was a man." I'm like, "Yeah, it was a man, wasn't it?" So I thought he was gonna probably quit after that one, but he stuck around for quite a while. I was kind of surprised. But yeah.
Well, I have two. I have two questions now.
Okay.
So we'll start with one that we're actually just talking about. So one of the things that I have gotten constantly as an investigator, and I have to do it especially during interview processes, is give people the risks of being an investigator. One of which you were just talking about, being followed home or being followed to a place otherwise, from where you were. Mm-hmm. How often does that, or has that happened again for you? And how big of a worry is it for you that as you investigate more and more, like that can be something that happens?
It's honestly not something I've personally ever worried about. The thing is like, it's hard to say whether this thing followed me back to the hotel or something was up at the hotel too, and we didn't know it. I have no idea. I did get a laugh out of it though, because when I was full time with them on the road, I didn't bother having my own apartment because I was never home. So I just crashed at my parents' house. And they used to like to blame me for any weird thing that happened in the house while I was away. But we had weird stuff happening in our house too growing up. So again, I don't know. I mean, I can't say for sure that that's ever happened to me, or if there was just more to the place that I was. I don't know if it's like with St. Augustine especially. I didn't have anything personally happen there that I remember. I know I didn't see a shadow figure. So I don't know if it's something that followed me back from there, if there's just something up with the hotel that I was in. Yeah, I don't think I've really had an experience with it, and it's not something I've ever been too concerned about either. Yeah, I don't know. Have you guys had it happen? Something follow you from one place to the next? Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave has, but they avoid me like the plague, so not really, no.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but more than once I've had stuff follow me around. But
yeah,
I mean, I've gone on investigations when first thing that we do, we walk into the location and click on the recorder and don't even say anything, and I get a "Hi, Dave."
Yeah.
It's like they're just waiting, like they were waiting for me to show up so they could come up and say hi, type of thing. Which is, I always thought that was strange. I was always like, I've asked that question hundreds of times to people I know and mediums and friends and Chip Coffee, and we've talked about it, and a lot of other people. And I've been like, do they know? Like, are they waiting for me, or is it like the same person that's following me around that's just like likes my energy, and they're just like, hey, he's going to Ashmore Estates next weekend. Let's go right over to Ashmore Estates. We'll meet him over there, or he's going over here. He's, whatever. And I always thought, I still haven't found an answer for it. I think it's weird. I think it's cool, but I think it's kind of strange at the same time, but it doesn't bother me. I just walk in and always say hi. I'm always like, hey, hi.
Yeah.
Like, if my fans are here, I just want to say hi, autographs after the weekend. Mike is shaking his head because he's never had the experience. Because every place he goes is just like stone cold dead.
Oh
no, that's not why I was shaking my head. I was shaking my head because you don't have fans on the other side. There's no autographs being signed.
I don't know about that. We'll see when I get to the other side, and all of a sudden there's this huge group of people that are like cheering and waving. I'll be like, yeah, we're all gonna go say hi to Mike all at once. We're going en masse over to Mike's, and we're just all going to hang out in his house for like 3 days, and we're going to let him have a real experience.
No, you know the rules. Stay the hell out of my house. Stay the hell out of my room.
You're right, Kim. I am the ghost magnet.
Yeah. No, you're not. That's okay. All right. So to my other question, I wanted to talk about go back to the crew, because I don't think that they get enough credit for what they do.
No, they don't.
And how were their reactions to things that you guys? Because one of the things that you never really see is how they react to things. And I got to give them credit for their poise and the fact that they like stay on you, even with stuff happening all around you.
Yeah.
I mean, was there ever a time where one of them just lost their shit because of something that happened to them?
I know there were occasions before I started, like the guy at the armory. I don't remember. It was the Springfield Armory or something where the sound guy's pack flew up kind of at him. I wasn't there for
remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
But I think the most or the biggest reaction I've ever seen was at Iron Island with the camera guy, Andy, that I was telling you about. He was, like I said, first day. He probably came in thinking, oh, this is going to be nothing, a bunch of wackos running around in the dark. And the next thing he knows, he sees a shadow person. So it was crazy. But yeah, I mean, they are awesome. Even like I said, even if they don't believe in it at all, they've always been very respectful. Um, if they drop something, they were quick to say that was me. So you don't have to worry about whether you're chasing something down that's nothing. Um, they they were just great. They were good friends. They looked out for us on the road. We'd all kind of hang out together too when we weren't working. But when we're on an investigation, I mean, they're walking backwards in the dark. you know, they're going upstairs in the dark. They are, their focus is on us the whole time. And there's so many times where they could really get hurt. So we'd also try to kind of keep our eye out for things that might trip them up because we didn't want them getting hurt either. But yeah, I mean, they would be there through the whole thing with us. And but yeah, the biggest reaction I saw from anybody on the crew was Iron Island. Andy had seen the shadow figure, and then shortly after we had gone into one of the side rooms so this place used to be a funeral home, it used to be a church, and now it's a museum. So it's just full with all kinds of crazy stuff. So you can talk about the history. You can also try to bring in the whole idea of things being attached to items with the place. They said that ashes remained in the basement that were unclaimed. Like there's this whole story around the place. I honestly rolled up, and this was the last time I ever did this. I was like, this place is lame. It used to be a funeral home. It used to be a church. It's now a museum. People are freaking themselves out. There's nothing here. This is so stupid. And I learned not to do that really quick. Do not judge a book by its cover, because you could go to a place that's like the least suspecting and things go nuts, or you could go to some big insane asylum and think things are going to go nuts and get nothing. But yeah, this place, after the shadow figure, we end up in one of the front rooms that used to be a viewing room. And I am not somebody that usually goes off of feelings for a bunch of different reasons, but it was like the air got heavy in there, and then it felt like the only way I could think of describing it was it felt like there were 200 people in this little room, and they kept getting closer and closer and closer. Like it just felt like the room was closing in as far as there's too many people in it, but there weren't. It was just 4 of us. And I had voiced that to Kristen Gartland because we were working together at the time, and after we were done shooting, the sound guy came over and he's like, it's so weird. He's like, I was getting that feeling too. So to hear you say it when you did, it freaked me out. But yeah, it's just the whole vibe of the room changed, and it was almost suffocating. The place was weird. But yeah, the crew's awesome. They were always really good to us.
Awesome.
No, I was just going to say it's kind of that smothering effect, because I've been in locations where it happens like that.
Yeah.
Where it almost sucks the energy out of the room, and you get this dense. It's like a dense sensation, is the way I kind of describe it. It's like everything gets a little heavier. You know, you feel pulled down a little bit. You feel like your energy dissipates a little bit, and you could feel it happening to you, but then you don't understand why it's happening, so you dismiss it.
Yes.
And you continue doing what you're doing, but then it kind of comes back stronger, and it's like this wave, this repetitious wave, until it's almost like it's trying to get your attention to the point where you're going to stop what you're doing and acknowledge what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, is that how you felt too, like when that happened to you? Because that's what it feels like. It wants recognition.
Yeah, I mean, it came on. It's not something before, which is why I voiced it, and then shortly after it stopped. But yeah, it was a weird place for sure.
So
Never
I have
experienced
seen
anything like that.
No, he never has. I have seen some recent posts from you on Facebook.
Here we go.
That no. It's a good thing. Okay. That make me think that you are kind of like I'm not a big fan of the when in doubt, throw it out thing. I've said it for a long time. Like, I don't like that phrase. I think that potentially there's evidence that's potential evidence that just gets dismissed too easily.
Yeah.
And so I've always kind of been anti. That phrase has been kind of like one of the things that I'm like, I just don't agree with it. But that said, it seems like you are more of like it really needs to be rock solid before I'm going to put my stamp on it. And if I'm not correct, okay, as I say, if I'm not correct, if I'm misreading you, then just let me know that I'm wrong. But it seems like that is what you're saying in some of the posts that I have seen.
Yeah.
So has that been something that is it? I don't think that probably was there the whole time for you, like from the beginning. Is it something that's happened over time, over your investigative career, or is that something that now is just coming to the forefront because of all the crap that we see on TV?
Yes.
That's a way to put you on the spot right there.
Yes and no. I mean, this goes back to my genealogy stuff, right? I am used to finding records. I'm used to finding proof in photographs, records, some sort of documentation. I will not believe anything. I won't count anything as fact until I can back it up. So for me, like I said, when I first started, I had a sincere reason for why I wanted in. That like I said, I went from not wanting anything to do with it to being like, okay, I'm ready, let's do this. I'm also someone that really does not like being lied to. I really do not like being misled. So for me, when I started, I was very stuck on that. It's like there are people like me watching at home. I refuse to mislead them. Like they need answers, I need answers. I might care for my personal reasons, but there are other people watching for the same reasons. So I have always went out because the way I look at it, too much being pushed through as evidence, especially today, it's insane. So for me back then, when I saw that they couldn't fully be like, yeah, it's weird, we're gonna push it aside, I was prone to believe it and the team when something did get pushed forward, because not every little thing is being pushed forward. Steve especially is very hard on things. And I remember when I first started, I didn't know what to make of him because he was kind of like hard to get to know. He was a little standoffish. He was very, very, very hard on evidence. But I respected that from him a lot right away because I feel like, especially back then, there was a lot more skeptical people watching. A skeptical person and people are hard on things before they're finally like, yeah, that's weird, you're going to trust them. But if you're a skeptical person and everything that happens being pushed off as a ghost, crap today is being pushed off as not even just ghosts but demons, you start questioning everything. Whole freaking unravels. And I think that's the biggest problem today is we are in such a like little danger spot where everything has been sensationalized. Everything is like a demon now. And I think when you're talking about the field in like a serious light, it's doing a lot of damage. And it drives me freaking nuts because when it gets into that space, it makes me regret having anything to do with it to begin with, which sucks. It was 4 solid years of my life that I took very seriously. And now it's just kind of like, it's going to kind of crazy town in a lot of ways. And it's upsetting to see. So I actually would like to see more of that return, the when in doubt kind of attitude, because I think things have gotten a little too loosey-goosey in a lot of ways these days. And I have a harder time believing things these days for that reason. I don't know.
Okay, 2 things. One, you just became my new best friend. So we've talked tons and tons and tons of times. In fact, I even just made my team a new T-shirt where on the back it says it's not a demon.
Yeah.
And it's because it's not, but everybody believes that it is because that's all they see on TV now.
Yeah.
If people aren't getting attacked, it doesn't make the air.
Yeah.
And so I'm with you on that one, and I love the fact that you said that. That makes me so happy. So I want to get your opinion on this because Dave and I disagree, and he knows what's coming. And
you know the problem. Okay, I'm just going to say this. So I have to say it. He's looking for somebody to agree with him, which has not happened the last 3 attempts that he's made. Right?
That is so not true.
That is totally 100% true. Go back and listen to the other episodes. So he is trying to find one person to agree with him so he can stand up and go, I told you so. I told you that you were wrong. That's exactly what he's hoping for.
It's
So
only
you
been one
answer
other time.
you answer truthfully. You answer truthfully, and we'll see where it goes. I'm totally okay with it. He needs ammunition.
Okay.
He's searching
Pressure's
for
on.
ammunition. He's searching for ammunition to point his finger at me and say, "I told you so." So we'll see.
Whatever.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. Do you, as an investigator, have a responsibility when you see people pushing evidence that you know is not actually paranormal, but they are pushing it as being paranormal, like dust in DVRs as spirits, or something that like a flashlight or whatever, when they're pushing it as paranormal evidence and you know it is not? Do you have the responsibility to call that out?
Yes.
And point out, woo!
Yes. Here's my thing. If I am not there, I'm not going to call people out. I don't know what the hell happened. I wasn't there. I couldn't run through everything myself. It is what it is.
There you go.
If
That's
I'm
what you said.
there-
That's exactly what I said. That's my whole point.
there-
Oh no, Mike! Don't be waving things off, because that's exactly what my point was. If somebody comes up to me with a story and some sort of evidence, it is not my job to dismiss what they think happened and brought that to me and said, "I thought I heard my grandmother talking. I took this picture and I got this ball of energy." It's not my job to say that didn't happen and that maybe the picture they took, maybe there was something there, but I'm not going to say to them, this is a ball of dust, because I wasn't at the location. And who am I to tell them that their experience didn't happen?
Well, I mean, there's a line there.
I am going to let her answer, but I had to clarify because you're clapping your hands too goddamn quickly.
It's hard in that one because, like, if somebody brings you a photograph of a dust ball and they're telling you it's grandma, I feel like I have to be straight with them. Like, listen, 99.9% of the time, whether it's water molecules or it's a strand of hair in front of your camera or it's your camera strap, chances are it is not your grandmother. You know, you find the nicest way to say it to them. But like me personally, I wouldn't want to be looking at some photo thinking my grandma's following me around. In reality, it's a piece of dust. So I like try to lightly guide them to this is how this works. Like it, and then I'll even say, was this taken from a camera? Oh yeah. Okay, so you didn't see this with your eyes. No. I'm like, okay, well then most likely it's just your camera. And I'll go through the reasons of why cameras do this sort of thing. So it's a hard one. Yeah, it's a tough one. It depends on the situation. But again, it goes back to me not wanting to be lied to. So I don't want to be like, oh yeah, that's totally your grandma, even though I can see the wings on the bug and the legs. I won't do it. I will lightly be like, oh no, it's probably X, Y, and Z. But if it's a little more difficult than that, I don't like to say it is or isn't, and there's a few reasons. One, I wasn't there. But two, there's a lot of people out there trying to trick you with shit. And if you're like, oh yeah, 100%, that looks real, it's real. And then next thing you know, it's online. Chris Williams said X, Y, and Z is real, but here's what I did to set it up. So like, there's people trying to trick you and set you up. And then there's people you just don't want to let them down, or you sometimes just honestly don't know. So I just don't like reviewing other people's evidence, because if I was not there, I honestly can't go through all of the scenarios that could have caused whatever happened in their evidence. Some people like to take that as I'm just a snob and I don't like looking at other people's stuff. It's just I wasn't there. So yeah, it depends. If it's orbs, I am kind of ruthless. If it's other stuff, I tend to just stay out of it.
That makes sense.
Because that kind of won that one.
Right. And when we were talking about it, I was not including the whole CGI faking shit, YouTube video, sensational stuff. I'm talking about legitimate, like people coming up to you that said, like they felt they had a legitimate experience and want to share it with you at a convention or something like that.
Oh yeah, that happens all the time.
A loved one showed up. Yeah, right. It happens a lot. So that was where Mike's and I conversation was, not the whole YouTube sensationalizing. I need my 15 minutes of fame because I'm a good creative editor for Photoshop or some whatever else, some video program, you know. Yeah.
But even then, I've had people tell me their experiences, and if it's something that I know that could be debunked, I'll ask them. I'm like, "Oh, did you check, the door? Did you check this, that, or the other thing?" And kind of lead them in those directions. And sometimes I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I checked all that." They don't want to hear it, and I'm like, "Okay, fine." In other cases, they're like, "Oh, no, I didn't even think of that." And I'm like, "Cool, well, check it out and let me know." Like, obviously, I'm on social media way too much, so let me know how it turns out. But yeah, it's definitely a touchy subject, but I always try to go back to what would I want to hear, and I wouldn't want to be misled. So I think people know me enough at this point that they're probably not. I mean, I think they would expect that from me to some degree. I don't know. Hopefully.
I would think so. Right. I would think so. Like I said, your presence is kind of like the debunker. It needs to be some really rock solid evidence before I'm going to even think about putting my stamp on it, which is how I feel you are. And you should be. And I think part of that is personal. I think part of it is the position, because you've got the presence of being on television and the presence of millions of people, or I would think millions of people, having watched you on TV and then be like, okay, well, she's an expert, and I hate the term paranormal expert. So,
I hate it.
I don't want to say expert, because I'm never going to call you a paranormal expert. Then that's not any type of knockdown. I just absolutely hate the term paranormal expert.
I hate it too.
Because you can't be an expert in a field where we're all still investigating and we're all still young and we're all babies trying to understand what the hell's going on around us. Right. And there's no way. Right.
For sure,
there's never going to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say there's never going to be a way to not do like the double blind study type of thing where we could prove it. Yeah. But right now, we're not at that stage.
No.
In our lives, we're not at that, and we're not going to be. Depending on how we advance, if we advance intelligently, we're going to get there sooner. If we continue to run around calling everything a demon, we're never going to get there.
It sets us back so much.
Right. It is. It's like going back to the black. Right. Yeah. It's horrible. We've talked about it on every show, just about. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's awful.
It's ridiculous. And everybody now that you talk to thinks that it's a demon in their house.
Oh my God.
Because they saw it on TV. Right.
It kills me. And that's the thing too, is I've said that before, like we were talking about when people come up to you and they tell you their story. There are certain words where I can feel my brain turn off and my eyes glaze over. And it's one portal. I hear that and I'm like, eh. And then demon for sure. And like I'll have people be like, oh yeah, every Tuesday on a full moon, like a demon jumps out from a portal underneath my bed, does the Irish jig and jumps into my closet. And I'm just standing there like, cool, that's good. Because it's just like, because I'm a ghost hunter, I'm expected to believe everything. I think it's how some people think, and they feel safe to tell you anything.
Right.
But it's just like, some of it is just like, it's so out there right now. Like, I don't even know what to do with half of it. It's so different. So different.
My team knows that there are certain topics, and they do this for fun because they know that my face starts to twitch, and they know they're going to get some sort of rise out of me.
Yep.
And so I'm 100% with you on that one. But here's my question then. Based on what you have seen, for good or for worse, where do you think we're actually headed in the field? Are we headed in the right direction, or are we completely screwed because we are going full on Hollywood?
I feel like in a lot of ways it's gotten full-blown Hollywood, especially with the demonic stuff. And I think that that's setting us back. If you're in this for, beyond this scare factor, if you're in it because you're honestly interested in it, or you're passionate about it, or you're at least taking it seriously, I think it's putting us back quite a bit. And I feel like in some ways, if it keeps going the route that it's going, it might collapse for a little bit, because it's just going to get to the point where no one's going to believe any of it anymore. And then we're going to be back to being the friggin' weirdos hiding this stuff. and not wanting anybody knowing that we're doing it anymore, like back in the day. So it's really frustrating because there's so many cool things that I've experienced, but they're in no way demonic. They're in no way that in your face, but they're still cool as hell. But it's just, yeah, it's gone in such a weird direction. And I think when it gets to the point where people don't know what to believe and don't feel like they can trust it or believe it, we're going to be back to where we were, like, however many years ago when the shows first started coming on. And I think that's why I was so skeptical back in the day with all the shows, is because you had an audience of skeptics. We don't have an audience of skeptics anymore. We don't. Everybody believes everything. Nobody questions anything. So, you do have people that can get away with some really crazy shit. And when you're working in a field where you don't need hardcore evidence to say something's real, there's so much room for fraud. There's so much room for it, especially if people aren't going to question what's being put in front of them. Now, that's not to say the most honest investigator can't make a mistake. I know some of the most honest, straightforward people have made mistakes, and that's fine. That's going to happen in any field. But like I said, when you don't have to prove anything, there's just so much room to screw with shit, and it sucks. It really sucks because it kind of ruins it for the rest of us. And like I said, it makes me regret putting 4 years of my life into something if it's all going to be turned into this bad joke in a lot of ways. But,
all right. So that said, and we feel the same way. That said, what is Chris Williams' solution moving forward? If you had control of the situation, what would you do to change where we are currently to take us to the positive step, or, all right, so I won't say positive, to the next step, the transitional step that we need to get to start getting back on track? I mean, what would you do? If you were in charge of the whole thing, what would you do?
I mean, I feel like in a lot of ways it almost has to collapse, which sucks. It's got to be like almost a do-over.
Got to do a rebuild type of thing?
A total rebuild. The demon crap needs to stop. It just needs to stop. Yeah. And I think there's a lot more investigators, and I don't even mean people on TV. I mean investigators who've been around long enough stepping forward and being like, this is bullshit, because this is not, sure, there could be demonic activity out there. And I say could because I have not experienced it myself. However, I have people like John Zaffis who I trust wholeheartedly. I absolutely love that man. And I trust him. However, when I question things he tells me, he doesn't hate me for it because he knows I haven't experienced it myself. So it's just kind of like I'm open-minded enough to know there's a possibility that demonic activity exists. However, for 4 straight years of looking for it on a daily basis as my life, I never ran into or encountered anything demonic outside of living, breathing people who can be absolutely horrid. So it's just that the demonic stuff needs to be scrapped. More people need to kind of speak out on it and not be afraid to be like, listen, enough's enough. And then it's just getting back to being skeptical again and getting people to understand that being skeptical and questioning doesn't make you a hater. And I think in a lot of aspects in life today, you question anything, God forbid, and you're a hater or you're crazy or you're just kind of written off. I don't know how many times I've had people within the field, and I'm not talking other investigators that I've worked with, but, as soon as you question something, they just dismiss, oh, you're a hater. You don't believe in any of it. It's like, wait a minute. I didn't say I don't believe in it, and I can give you plenty of experiences that I've had that I still consider odd. But I cannot look at you with a straight face and tell you I know exactly how it works, because I don't. So it's just like not being afraid to question, not being afraid to be skeptical, knowing that being skeptical and questioning is not hating things, and just getting rid of the whole freaking demon thing. So it's just enough's enough. It's so overdone. I think that's the biggest thing. I don't know. It's so weird right now. It's really weird.
You think it's fair to say that social media has kind of destroyed the paranormal field?
I think it's destroyed beyond just the paranormal field. Yeah.
Well, I do too.
Yeah.
But don't get me started on that, because you won't
So
have
much
anything
more
else.
is
You won't get any more words in the last 9 minutes of the show if you get me started on on that. But I'm just saying, do you think that like social media and everybody with their "I need my 5 minutes of fame" bullshit has destroyed or is making a very negative impact on our field?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that are fame chasers, and they're not afraid to yell demon because they'll get them some seconds of attention, which sucks. Again, I don't think they're worried about what it's doing to the rest of us on a larger scale, and I don't think they really care, which is unfortunate. It's just, like I said, there needs to be enough people not afraid of calling bullshit with that stuff. Like I said, I believe in the possibility of it. I haven't experienced it myself, but I know it doesn't happen as frequently as everybody likes to say that it does these days. They make it sound like there's a demonic, like some sort of demonic something in every house, on every block, in every town, on every corner, and it just doesn't work like that. It doesn't. So, yeah.
3 times in 40 years. 40 years of investigating. 3 times I've had a demonic case. So, right. Less than once a decade that I've run into something that was truly evil.
Yeah.
Like truly destroying souls.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the thing too, is some people will be like, oh, well, you know, if it's mean, it's demonic. I'm like, no, I've met plenty of living people who are really mean, and they're not going to be nice and deaf. It's not going to, I wouldn't think it would change them. I think they'd still be assholes.
Right.
So,
I agree with you. I've said that a lot too. Yep.
It's, I don't know. It's just, it's gotten so weird. So weird. It's weird to be in the paranormal calling something weird, because we're supposed to be weird, but it's gotten a little too weird for the weird people, I think. I don't know.
Do you think another thing, and this was kind of the question that I wanted to ask like way prior to this, but didn't get a chance to. But now I do. Do you think that for people who want to be in the paranormal as investigators, how important is it to actually get some legitimate training on how to do it? Because there are so many people out there. Well, how important is it? Because I've had clients who have been like, can I join your team? And I'm like, no, you can't. And they're like, okay, well, maybe I'll just get some equipment. I'll get some friends and we'll just start our own team. No, you shouldn't do that because nothing good can come from that. But so many people see what they do on TV. They get a bunch of friends. They buy a K2 and a millimeter, and they just start trespassing at places they can go to try to film a YouTube video. So how important is it to actually get some legitimate training with a reputable team?
It is important. I mean, again, it's hard because we're talking about a field that can't be proven 100%. So when you tell somebody that they shouldn't do it, they're kind of left wondering like, well, why? Like, you're running around the dark with weird like meters and stuff. So, you know, there's no like real school for it. But it is good to find a team that takes it seriously, that aren't like demon screamers, that respect the property that they're in, that do not trespass. As soon as you said trespass, my head was like, because it's just like, I think of this article that came out not long ago, and it was like a guy and a girl, I don't know if they're together or what, but they went and they started looking around the Buffalo Central Terminal, and they brought some meters and they're investigating, and the next thing they know, they're on some roof area, and the woman like fell through and dropped about 15 to 20 feet. She punctured a lung, she broke some ribs and all this stuff. And I'm reading the story and I felt for her. I honestly did. I was like, God, you know, that anytime people would ask me what's the scariest thing about ghost hunting, I never said ghosts. I always said open elevator shafts. Stairways I didn't expect to be there. Like animals I didn't expect. People I didn't expect. Like there's so many other things that are real dangers. You know, so for this girl to have it happen, I really felt for her. But where she lost me was, well, if they had a no trespassing sign, I wouldn't have gone in. It's like, if you do not own the property, you're trespassing. If you have not asked the people who own the property if you can go in, you're trespassing. So you just lost me there. I still feel bad for you because that is a scary experience, but you know, have some accountability because your ass should have been in the building to begin with. But yeah, I mean, you do definitely need some sort of experience. I got lucky with the guys. They've been around for a long time already. They took the subject matter seriously. They're very hard on things. And like I said, because they were so hard on things, I trusted them more and I trusted the whole experience more. I feel like the other thing is too, is like picking up some books. But even books, I think today, and I don't want to say this about everybody's book because I know people who've written them and they've done some good ones, but I also know there's a lot of people that have flooded the market with just crap because it'll make a buck. So I always try to say, look for older books from people who've been in the field forever before this blew up into this big entertainment thing, because there is information out there. But it's just like, yeah, finding it is hard, and trying to figure out who to trust can be hard. It's a tricky thing, but you do need experience. And we all start with some funky meter at some point or another. But yeah, I think it's just finding a good team and hoping they have some room for you, or will make some room for you. I don't know if any of that rant made sense, but that's
absolutely.
No, it made sense, because when I started, I was the guy trying to figure out what the hell was going on in my life, in my house, and what was affecting me and what was affecting my family and what was causing all the stuff that was causing. And I was at the library pulling out the card catalog, putting it in sideways, going, okay, I hope it's there. I hope it's in H26 aisle 4, and then going down and trying to find the book that was related to the topic that I was trying to understand. I mean, because getting into it, I think when I graduated high school, the first computer was made, and it was like the size of my room, it was like not something that you had in your house. It was like just the first computer was made, there were no cell phones. There were no, there was none of that shit. So when you so my suggestion to people is, when you go back and try to look for stuff, go back to the stuff that I studied, that I had to go back to. Because back then, when people were having experiences and they were studying it, there was nothing sensationalized. Nothing. No. There was no social media. There was no television spots. There were no television shows about it.
And the
there
people
was nothing.
Putting this stuff out were taking a real chance.
Sure they were. Hans Holzer spent his whole life trying to understand what the hell was going on. Worked with psychic mediums and did hundreds of investigations, and never really never said this is what's happening. Just documented what happened, and then let you try to understand. Or if you had a similar experience, give you some sort of, man, it happened to somebody else. Thank God. Now I feel like I'm not alone. Now I'm not the only person standing here in the corner, wondering what the hell's happening in my life. Somebody else in Buffalo, New York, and somebody in Seattle had an experience that was just like mine. Now I'm not crazy. Now there's some sort of commonality. So.
No, I agree.
So, Chris, with the last few minutes that we have, what's next for you? Like, where are you going? What are you doing?
I don't know. I have no idea. I've had a lot of people ask me if I'll return. I don't know. We'll see. I've been kind of sticking a toe in with the events and kind of trying to get a feel for where everything's at. It has changed so much in the last 10 years since I stepped away. I am having a hard time wrapping my head around it. Yeah. I'm not sure. I've been playing around with Halloween subscription boxes. I've been a Halloween nut since I was a kid, so that's been a lot of fun. It's also been forcing me to get back into being creative, because I was actually, the thing that I wanted to be as a kid was an artist all the way up through high school. So for me to return to that sort of stuff is where my loves were back in the day. And I feel like the Halloween stuff has really been pushing me into that, because I've been trying to create things that go into each month's box as well. I haven't completely closed the idea of a return to some capacity, but it's definitely gonna have to be in a way that I feel like I can stick to who I am with it, and I'm not gonna be put in positions where I have to sensationalize or scream demon or any other BS that I wouldn't be okay with. So we shall see. we shall see. For right now, it's been events and just kind of playing with things and seeing where I go. So, yeah. And ranting online. I do a lot of that.
Well, perfect. Well, apparently. But if anybody wants to get a subscription or whatever to these Halloween boxes, where would they go?
Right now, long story short, I had a really cool name for it, and then last minute I found out I couldn't use it. Really freaking annoying. So I have a generic site up right now until I figure out the official name. So it's just shopchriswilliams.com, and that's where the boxes are. And then I have my own website where I'm gonna start writing my own stuff soon, and that's just chriswilliams.com. So, and outside of that, I like to rant on places like Facebook and Twitter and all that. So I'm around and I'm chatty. But
as you should.
Yes.
Because we need more you and less Dave out there. Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
Hold on a minute. Let me get the spear out of my chest. That's not even an arrow. It was a frickin' spear. Wow.
Oh my goodness.
He's gonna crap his pants when I come on the show and I'm just silent and just sit here and don't say anything. Be like, oh. He'll be like, well, Dave, what do you think?
That's fine. It'll be your most intelligent answers ever.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Okay.
It's a good thing.
All right.
It's a good thing we're friends.
Yes. You wouldn't know it by the last like 30 seconds. But
no, well,
yes.
We are friends. But yeah.
But anyway, Chris, we are obviously out of time.
Out of time, yeah.
It was not enough because we didn't even get into half of the stuff that I definitely wanted to. So if you're willing to come back, we will definitely have you back soon.
Sure, I'm around.
But thank you for
thank you
coming
guys.
on. I really appreciate it. And yeah, so that does it for us here this week. We'll be back next week with another episode. Stay healthy, stay safe. We want to see you back here. Everybody have a good night.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you guys.